Hey, Zach.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Insect Zoo. My name is Zach. I'm the Insect Zoo keeper here, and thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited to share some of our super cool critters that we've got here in the Insect Zoo. Before we get started though, I just wanted to say a few things. The Oregon Zoo is open now to the public, so if you've got some time, we'd love for you to stop on by. That being said, all of our indoor areas are still closed, but that's why we're going to bring you some cool stuff that you wouldn't normally get to see right now. We know times are really weird for everyone right now, but if you can, we'd really appreciate your financial support and donations. You can head on over to the Oregon Zoo website and donate through there. Those donations are just super important for us and allow us to keep doing really cool work and conservation and bringing you cool little critters like this guy right here.
All right, so right off the bat, Nicole is asking, what is that?
What is this? Well, this is one of my personal favorite animals. This is Dynastes grantii, or the Grant's Hercules beetle. And this guy is native to the United States. He is probably our largest or maybe second largest beetle that we've got here in the United States. The only thing that would be comparable to him is the Eastern Hercules beetle in the same genus. This guy lives in the Southwest, primarily in Utah and Arizona, kind of up at altitude at a few thousand feet.
So Nicole's asking, does it have pinchers? Can you tell us a little about this really impressive head here?
Yeah, so all this head ornamentation right here, these are their horns, and only the male beetles have these. Females are a little bit smaller overall, and they don't have this impressive ornamentation up here. And the males use these to fight with each other. So they'll kind of grab each other. This bottom horn here is mobile. It's actually attached to his head. And you see he's moving it right there. He moves it up and down, and they can kind of clasp with those horns, and they'll flip each other over or off logs or trees or things like that.
Tony's asking how much he weighs.
Tony, he probably weighs 20 to, probably not even that much, probably 15 to 20 grams. I actually haven't weighed him. I have measured him. He is 66 millimeters long, which puts him pretty average size for one of these beetles. These guys can get about 75 to 80 millimeters from the tip of their horns to their abdomen here.
Thomas is asking if this is a carnivore.
Thomas, no, he is not a carnivore. So in the wild, he feeds on tree sap. He doesn't have any kind of mouth parts that would allow him to bite, but they will find kind of open wounds in trees where that sap is flowing, and they've got kind of little feather brush mouth parts that you probably can't see, but they're right down in there, and they use those to drink up the sap. Here in the Insect Zoo, though, he feeds mostly on banana slices and something we make called beetle jelly, which is a special food we make just for beetles.
Cam is asking, how much does he eat?
So Cam, he can probably eat about a banana slice that's, about a quarter, half-inch thick, a normal banana slice, about every day or two, maybe a little more than that.
Brian wants to know, why is he so shiny? Is it hard to hide when he's this shiny?
So his coloration kind of depends on his environment. So right now I pulled him out about an hour ago, so he's this nice light gray color because he's been drying out. When these guys get really humid though, if they're buried in the dirt and things, these guys are almost a black, brown, kind of a dark red color. So their exoskeleton here really changes colors based on the ambient humidity. That being said, these guys are actually nocturnal though, so he doesn't have to worry about being seen much in general.
Lucas and Julie are asking if they can bite.
Lucas and Julie, no, he can't bite. He does kind of have sharp little claws right there, those little tarsal claws that you can see gripping into my skin, and those help him climb trees and things, but he can't hurt me otherwise.
And Rachel and a couple other folks are asking, how much does he weigh?
Oh, Rachel, that's a good question. I don't honestly know. He's probably around 15 to 20 grams, but that's kind of just a guess.
So they have a really amazing life cycle, and Tony's asking about eggs. Can you tell us a little about this beetle's life cycle?
Absolutely. So Tony, this guy, so a male adult here, once he's turned into this male, he's only going to live on average 2 to 4 months. So not a very long time at all. But as soon as they emerge into these adult beetles, which we call imagos, the males will seek out a female and they will breed, and then the female will lay anywhere from about 40 to 60 eggs. And those eggs can take up to 6 months to hatch. And then the really cool part of this beetle's life cycle starts. It can take 2 to 3 years for those newly hatched eggs to turn into one of these beetles. They will stay in their, what we call their third instar, which is a really big grub. He's palm sized, he's probably about that long. And they can stay in that third stage for anywhere from about 12 to 15 months. We got these guys as third instar grubs back in about September. And he just came out about 3 weeks ago.
So Landon is asking, what kind of animals prey on a beetle like this?
Small carnivores would certainly try to prey on him, like raccoons and other things kind of in the small, like weasel family, I'm sure would try to get him. Birds, big birds if they can see him. But that, he kind of tries to negate that by being nocturnal. And also he can kind of secrete some foul smelling substances if he gets really disturbed.
So, and Yvonne asked how he can see, and I wonder if, Zach, you can point out his eyes, because it is sort of hard to...
I'm going to try to get him down in the light a little bit more here. He's got very good eyes. You can see one right there. Hi, buddy. He's checking me out. But he's got one eye right there, and like most invertebrates anyway, he's got compound eyes, so he kind of sees this weird multifaceted picture. But those really shiny things right there, right at the base of this bottom horn, those are his eyes. But you can also see he's got these little chemoreceptors around his mouth that kind of help him feel out what he's trying to nibble on.
So we have some folks asking if he's friendly.
Well, he's certainly not aggressive. I hesitate to call any insect friendly, but he's very docile. He's very tractable, as we would say. He's pretty tolerant of being handled. They're not an aggressive species of insect by any means.
So this has been awesome. We have a couple other Insect Zoo residents here.
Yeah, for sure.
Who should we meet next?
We'll try and get this guy off my hand, which is easier said than done. And I think we're going to go on to a walking stick next.
Yeah, so we have Michael pointing the camera at a monstrous one here.
Yeah, so this one is really cool. I'm going to try to very gently move her over here a little bit.
So her camouflage is so amazing that it might be hard for some folks to even see that this is an insect.
Yeah, so right here we have a Malayan giant walking stick, or Phoebicus ceratopes. And up until pretty recently, this insect held the record for being the longest insect in the world. These guys can go up to about 22 inches. And the insect that beat her out is actually in the same genus. So it looks almost identical to her. It's just can be up to about 100 millimeters or so longer, which is pretty impressive because she's already huge. I mean, if I put my arm up next to her, you can see she's almost as long as my forearm to the ends of my fingers, which is just crazy for an insect.
So tell us a little bit about this incredible camouflage.
So walking sticks in general utilize a few different forms of camouflage and trying to be cryptic. This genus in particular just really utilizes looking like a stick. So during the day, this is pretty much what they do. You can see she's really not moving at all. So their only defense is to not be seen. And if she were high up in the canopy amongst the branches and leaves, odds are you would never see her. And predators wouldn't either. And she'll go so far as to even sway back and forth in the wind when the wind blows or if the rain's falling, just to try to blend in. And then as it starts to get darker, she'll start moving around, she'll start waking up, and she'll start eating leaves. And she'll get on with her night eating leaves and also laying eggs.
So Anna's asking if she's
And you can see, I'll hold some eggs up here, and I don't know if we can get a shot of those, but those are their eggs. And that's how the little baby hatches out of those, called a nymph. And then it takes them about 6 to 7 months to grow up into one of these full-size adults here. And this is a female. The males are significantly smaller. They're about half as long and much, much thinner. But she's got to be a lot bigger because she has to have space to lay all those eggs.
Blake is asking, what do walking sticks eat?
Blake, all walking sticks are herbivores, and that means they eat plants. And most walking sticks usually will eat very specific kinds of plants. Some will only eat one species in particular, and that's it. They're very particular feeders, but they don't eat meat or anything like that. They're not dangerous to us. They just like to graze on plants and hang out and kind of do their thing.
Courtney's asking how long they live.
Courtney, these guys will live generally around a year total. It takes them about 6 months or so to get to this full adult size, and then they'll live about another 6 months after that. There are a few species of walking stick that can live upwards of 2 years, but really nothing beyond that. And this species in particular, a year is about right.
So we have another type of walking stick here, one that's super endangered. Can we talk about this one?
So this is probably my favorite walking stick that we've got here currently in the insect zoo. And I'm actually going to get her onto my hand here so you guys can see her a little bit better because she's a little bit smaller. Oh, and we've got some really cool, we get those wings in there. This is Peruphasma schultii, or the golden-eyed walking stick. And if you can see her eyes right there on the end of my hand, you can see where she gets her common name, the golden-eyed walking stick. She is native to Peru, and her entire species home range, so where every single member of her entire species lives, exists in an area about 1/3 the size of Portland. So you can imagine just how small that is. You could fit her whole population 3 times over in Portland, and that would be it. That's it for the entire world.
So
she
if
is.
they were,
Oh, go ahead.
if they were to lose any habitat in that small of a range,
Oh yeah,
they're in big trouble.
They're doomed at that point. Fortunately for us, these guys are pretty prolific in captivity, so we have a healthy population here, as do several other zoos around the country.
So Grandma's Place Preschool is tuning in and would like to know if the walking stick is preyed on by any creatures.
Yeah, primarily birds are their biggest predators. And this walking stick actually has a unique defense mechanism. So right as I brought her out, you guys hopefully saw those bright red wings she's got under there. They're under these little variegated wing casings. Those are for something that we call aposematic coloration, and that lets predators know that she does not taste good. She's got 2 little glands right behind her head. They're right there. And when she gets scared, she can spray out a cloud of really noxious fluids. It's very foul tasting. It's irritating to your eyes, to your lungs, and definitely stings and kind of burns. So she doesn't need to worry about blending in as much because she tastes really, really bad.
Logan is asking if she can smell. Does she have a sense of smell?
So Logan, they smell a little bit differently than we do. They don't have a nose like us mammals do. She is smelling with these big antennae that she's waving around right there. And that's how they kind of physically sense the world and smell the world. There's loads of little sensors basically all up and down those antennae that help them smell out what food's good to eat, where they shouldn't go, things like that.
Isha is asking, is this a male or a female?
This is a female, and just like the last walking stick species we looked at, the males of this species are quite a bit smaller. And hopefully when the insect zoo opens back up, if you guys stop by, you'll be able to come see how much smaller. They can easily sit on the back of the female, and the female doesn't even notice.
And Jennifer's asking, she was looking at those little wing buds and asking, are those vestigial wings or can she actually fly?
She cannot fly, they are vestigial. Good use of the word. Mainly what they'll use them for is they'll pop those up and display the bright red wings underneath just as a warning color.
And Lucas is asking, what's the lifespan for this species?
Just like our other walking stick, it is right around a year. They don't live much past that.
And Leaf is asking, can these stick insects bite?
Leaf, no, they can't bite. They have tiny little mouth parts right up there. If you can see those little red pits, she's gonna try to climb on the camera. That is her mouth there, and her mouth is just big enough to kind of nibble on some leaves, but they can't bite us at all.
But they can bite you if you're a leaf.
If you're a leaf, there's actually, that you say that, there is a species of walking stick that we also have here in the insect zoo that is a leaf mimic, and they look so much like leaves that other walking sticks will in fact eat them.
Oh, wow. All right, so we have one last guest here, and this was a popular one last time.
Yeah, I've got a returning favorite here, assuming she'll come out and not fly around for me. So if she does, I apologize.
And while we're doing that, Lenora is asking, she missed the name of the last stick insect. Can you tell us again?
That is Perophasma schultzii, or the golden-eyed walking stick. You will also hear them called the Black Beauty walking stick. There we go. They have a few different common names.
All right.
All right, so what we've got here is our Malayan dead leaf mantis. And if you guys tuned in to the last one of these from the insect zoo, we had her out as well. But she's really popular, and if you didn't get to tune in last time, well, now you get to see her.
Michael, can you come a little lower? We can kind of get a good look here.
Yeah, and she is cool. She's our only carnivore that we're bringing out today. And unlike most of our other carnivores in the insect zoo, she actually uses sight to pin down her prey. So she's got these big eyes right here. Oops, sorry. And she keys in on movement. So anything that moves and looks small, she will try and eat.
Okay, so Tony's asking, can this mantis fly?
She can kind of fly. She can flutter. She can fall with style, if you will. But she's certainly quick enough where if she wanted to try and get away from me here, she probably could.
So what do praying mantises eat?
Praying mantids will eat anything they can catch. Primarily, they eat small insects and invertebrates, but there are reports of big mantids even grabbing like hummingbirds out of the air. It's not a common occurrence. You shouldn't ever expect to see it, but it has happened. They're just voracious predators, and they will just eat and eat and eat. And most times, especially females here, once they're adult, their appetite is crazy. It's nonstop eating. And the reason they do that is so they can lay really healthy egg cases. I'm gonna try and bring one over. This female actually just laid an egg case for us. And if you guys can see it down in there, those are called ootheca. And mantids all make varying kinds of ootheca. And in there are lots of eggs, a couple dozen at least. And it takes about 4 to 6 weeks for those eggs to hatch out. And then the mantids, the baby mantids, will all hatch out all within about half an hour of each other. And they kind of dangle on these little silk threads.
So Shafina is asking, how do they breed?
So Shafina, they have these things called spiracles, and they're pretty hard to see on her. But if you look at things like a cockroach, especially like a hissing cockroach, there are these little holes that line their bodies, and they can open and close those holes basically at will. And when they open, they allow oxygen to flow into their bodies. They don't have lungs like we do. They have a passive breathing system. So oxygen will just flow into their bodies and then just kind of distribute it around.
So Clara, watching from Sydney, Australia, is asking if this mantis is full size.
Clara, she is full size. She will not get any bigger than this. There are mantids out there that are significantly bigger than her. Here in the United States, we have some introduced species. The Chinese mantis is probably one if you guys have seen around. They're all over, and you'll actually see them for sale for a lot of gardeners. Gardeners will use them to control pest insects, and they're quite a bit bigger than what she is. But there are also mantids that are quite a bit smaller than she is.
So Vanessa's got a tough question here, but it's a pretty interesting one. How many baby mantises do you think will make it to adulthood?
Not many is the answer. So out of an egg case, which may have anywhere from 50 to 100, I think she'd be lucky to get one survivor out of that. So these guys will typically lay anywhere from 2 to up to 5 ootheca throughout their lifespans, and it's easily less than 10% of those will survive to adulthood to reproduce. They tend to be pretty cannibalistic, so they will eat each other. But also everything else, when they're that small, everything will try and eat them.
And Claire is asking, is it true that female mantises eat their mates?
Sometimes, yes. It just kind of depends. A lot of times, at least in captivity here, we try to avoid it because we like to try and breed those males to other females, but it does happen. And the female does that so she can be really nourished and have a lot of nutrition so she can make those egg cases. So it's actually her survival strategy to be as well fed as possible.
So Zach, we've been seeing some amazing insects here today. Quite a diversity of them, a carnivore, a detrivore, a leaf eater. Can you tell us a little bit about why these insects in general are so important and to the health of all habitats throughout the world?
Well, if you ask me, and I'm obviously biased, but I think insects are hands down probably the most important major animal group out there. We rely on them extensively for all the foods that we eat. Probably 70% of all the fresh produce that we eat as human beings comes from food that was fertilized by insects. All your nuts, most of your fruits, all that wouldn't exist if insects were not around to fertilize it. They also help keep tabs on the ecosystem, as far as like keeping other animals from getting out of control, population-wise, or help breaking down vegetation in forests so it doesn't just pile up. We've got some native millipedes here in the Pacific Northwest that are some of our primary recyclers of a lot of our conifer needles, and they're a really pretty little millipede. But if we didn't have those, that stuff would just pile up in the ground and nothing could ever live there. So between all their different roles of detritivores and herbivores and carnivores, they fill just about every niche in the ecosystem possible.
And what are some just simple ways around our households that we can help these little guys survive?
Well, planting native plants, especially for pollinators, is super important. The more native flowering plants we can have for pollinators, the healthier our pollinator populations are going to be. Also, just making space available for them, creating big log piles and leaf piles in your backyard is a really cool way to kind of attract some of our native beetles and things. And not using pesticides and herbicides. The less chemicals we can put out on our lawns and yards, the healthier in the end the ecosystems that use that space will be.
Well, this has been awesome, Zach. Thank you so much for showing us these insects today.
Oh, thank you guys for tuning in. It was my pleasure.